Right, we are back for another episode of Felonious.
Yes, hello.
Hello, I'm Nazia.
And I'm Emma.
And today we will be discussing the disappearance of Jane, Arnna and Grant. I don't know how to pronounce this because in French it's Beaumont, but in Australian it's Beaumont. I can't do an Australian accent. Beaumont.
Grant Beaumont.
So how should I do it? Australian or French?
I think you have to do it in Australian because that's where it's based, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. But it's awkward because where I live, the part of the town name is Beaumont. Anyway, no relation, but there you go. So yeah, Grant Beaumont, also known as the Beaumont Children. On the 26th of January 1966, a day otherwise celebrated as Australia Day. I don't know why I try and put an Australian accent on. Sorry, it's gonna keep happening. I don't know why. I'm sorry. The three children left their home to spend a day at the Glenelg Beach. They never returned home, and their disappearance gripped the nation. The disappearance also remains unsolved to this day. So this episode, there'll be discussions around sexual abuse, child sexual abuse, rape and kidnapping. And most of the information was taken from a Channel 7 news investigation documentary. And there were a couple of other documentaries which are on YouTube, which we'll link in the show notes. And there have also been various news articles. So just to set the scene, we'll talk about what Australia was like in the 1950s. So after World War II, Australia was considered a safe place. However, in the 1960s, it was considered to have, quote, lost its innocence after a number of atrocious crimes. In January 1965, two teenage girls, Marianne Schmidt and Christine Sharrock, were sexually assaulted and then murdered at Wanda Beach. A year later, in January 1966, another case also captured the nation's attention, and both of them remained unsolved. In the 1950s, the suburbs of Adelaide was considered to be the best place in the world to raise children. Ex-serviceman Grant, aka Jimmy Beaumont, married Nancy Ellis in 1955. They gave birth to their three children, Jane in 1956, Arnna in 1958, and Grant in 1961.
On the 26th of January 1966, which was Australia Day, Nancy gave her children, who were 9, 7 and 4 years old at the time, permission to go to Glenelg Beach. It was the summer holidays, so it was a hot day. The children were instructed to take the bus instead of riding their bikes. They were dressed in their swimsuits, shorts and sandals. Jane had their beach towels in an airline-style shoulder bag. The children were given money in exchange for their bus fares and lunch. At that time, it was common for children to go out on their own, and they were generally back before the streetlights were off. The Beaumont children often went to the beach without their parents. Jenny Muirhead, Jane's best friend, would often join the children on their outings. However, she did not join them on this occasion. In the Channel 7 News investigation documentary, Jenny described what a typical day at the beach would have been like. The children would have played in the water, with Jane making sure Grant didn't go too far in for his safety. They would have then played on the beach, building sandcastles. The children got on the bus just after 10 a.m. Nancy started to worry when the children had not returned by 2 p.m. Jimmy returned home just after 3 p.m. He was a travelling salesman, and he came home earlier than usual to surprise the children. Instead, he came home to a worried Nancy. He immediately drove to the beach, but was unable to find them, so he drove back home to Nancy. They started looking for the children together, checking the streets and their friends' houses. At 5 p.m, the parents went to the police station. Mostyn Matters was on duty when Jimmy arrived to report the children missing. During a news interview, Jimmy described Jane as being very intelligent and quite capable of taking care of her two younger siblings. A few nights before the disappearance, Jane wrote a note to her parents saying that she had put a nappy on Grant and that he had wanted to sleep in his own bed. Jenny described how Jane was the custodian of her 2 siblings and would do anything for them. The disappearance became one of Australia's biggest missing persons cases in history. 30 uniformed police started a search later that evening. The search was thorough, including the surrounding areas. Storm drains were flushed, the local boat harbour was drained, surveillance put on the airport, an interstate rail line, and roadblocks were set up on roads leading out of the state. However, because of the time lapse, the perpetrator had plenty of time to get away. Jimmy spent all night looking for the children, while Nancy was so distraught she needed to be sedated. It took several days before she could talk to the press about her missing children. Police were overwhelmed with people contacting them with reported sightings.
Detective Sergeant Peter Vogel was assigned to the case. According to witnesses, the children went for a swim. They then walked up to a lawn near the beach to play. Witness reports state there was a fair-haired man watching them before approaching them and joining in with them playing. Among the witnesses were an elderly couple sitting on a bench who knew the children but didn't speak to them. The fair-haired man was described to be wearing Speedos, dark blue with a white stripe. He played with the children for some time, and at one point he approached the elderly couple and asked them if anyone had been near, quote, our clothes, claiming money had been taken from them. Investigators believe the children knew the man or had met him before due to the familiarity witnessed between them. They also believe he plotted for them to lose their money so they would be left vulnerable and he could come across as helpful to them. In other words, he took away their means of getting home. One female witness watched closely and felt something wasn't quite right when she saw the man helping 9-year-old Jane get dressed. He then went to the changing rooms to get dressed. The children were then observed to cross a path and appeared to wait for the man by a bench. Another eyewitness account is from a local postman who knew the children and cycled past them. They said hello to each other. The children then went to a bakery to buy some lunch. One thing to note was that they paid for their lunch with a banknote when their mother had given them change. The children bought cakes and a pie for the man. After this, they disappeared. The Sunday Mail published the headline, "Sex Crime Now Feared," confirming the police's concern that the children had been murdered by a sexual predator. By February, there was no progress with the case. The government offered a measly £250 reward. This angered the public, who then, with Jimmy's contribution, raised the reward money to £10,000.
That's crazy. They only offered £250 as a reward for 3 missing children.
Yeah, and it's quite a jump to go up to 10,000.
Yeah,
it's quite a big difference.
It makes you wonder why the elderly couple didn't ask the children if they're okay. So I'm wondering if they knew the man somehow.
Yeah, I guess if they thought there was some familiarity between the man and the children, people probably would have assumed that he wasn't a danger to them. And I don't know, I don't want to use the word bystander effect because that theory has been debunked, but do you know what I mean? People aren't going to assume the worst, especially back in those days when it was quite normal for kids to go to the beach on their own, and if it was not a tight-knit community, but a small community where everyone knew each other.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
9 months after the disappearance, a local businessman brought in famous Dutch clairvoyant, Gerard Croiset. He asked Barry Blackwell, a local businessman and family friend, for help. He was asked to film the coastline and send it to Croiset. They sent Croiset the footage, and he sent back a plan and details of the children's last steps. He believed that the children had not been kidnapped, but had been buried alive. Crowds then started digging up the beach and searched caves and hollows. Croiset said he saw the children crawling past a barrier and warning sign and through a small hole before sand and water tumbled in on them. A drain was found leading to the sea, which was completely blocked. A day was spent unblocking it, but nothing was found. It was then written that Barry Blackwell would fly Croiset out to the area, which he hadn't actually agreed to. Barry did end up flying on KLM, paying for Croisette's fare and bringing him to Australia. The next day, Croisette toured the beach and then went to a warehouse where the children once played. The warehouse had just been renovated, including a new concrete floor. Croisette told police firmly that the children were buried under the concrete. At the time, the government declined to excavate the area. 30 years later, the concrete was eventually dug up, but nothing was found. At the time, Croisette was convinced the children were buried under the concrete and declared his job had been done. At the last minute, he was invited to meet with Nancy and Jimmy. Nancy told him that she believed her children were still alive. Croisette gave a final press conference, insisting that the children were buried in the storeroom. Jimmy and Nancy were later visited by religious fanatics, believing in the supernatural. A hoax was played on them as well, where 4 letters, supposedly written by Jane, were sent to the couple. One of the letters they received told them where to go if they wanted to get their children back. The couple went to the designated location and found nothing. Nancy was also abused by members of the public, accusing her of being responsible for her children's disappearance. The couple stayed in their home for many years, with Nancy holding out hope that the kids would return. The children's bedrooms remained untouched. However, eventually, Nancy and Jimmy separated and led separate lives.
It's so typical that you would get idiots that would set up hoaxes to further traumatise the family, but also people would blame the mum.
Yeah.
Isn't she traumatised enough?
It's like an automatic thing, though.
Like these morons that mum shame, and, you know, she's the easy one to point the finger at because her husband was away working. And, you know, she was the last one to see the kids before they went to the beach. But I think she probably blames herself enough.
Yeah, you don't have to add to it.
Yeah, it's so fucked up.
Now we'll go into some of the suspects that the police were looking into. One was Derek Percy. He was a serial killer and child killer, who was also a suspect of the Wonder Beach murders. He admitted to being at Glenelg Beach on the day of the Beaumont Children's disappearance, but denied any involvement. James Ryan O'Neill was also another suspect, and was convicted of murder and was a suspected serial killer. In the early 1970s, he had told several people that he was responsible for the disappearance of the Beaumont children. In 2006, a documentary was aired on Australian TV called The Fisherman. It was about O'Neill and alleged that he was connected to a number of unsolved child murders in the 1960s and 70s, including the Beaumont children. However, he was discounted as a suspect by South Australian police. Anthony Munro was a millionaire bar owner. He was formerly a scout leader and pleaded guilty to child sex offences dating back to the early 1960s. In 2016, he was questioned by police about the Beaumont case, as they believe he was in Adelaide around the time the children disappeared. However, there is no evidence linking him to the case. Bevan Spencer von Einem was a child murderer and suspected serial killer. A police informant known as Mr. B alleged that von Einem was involved in the disappearance of the children. In 2007, police examined archival news footage from the original search to try and identify von Einem, as he fit the description of the man described by witnesses. The police sketch of the man witnesses described also bore a striking resemblance to a man called Harry Phipps, who Stuart Mullins believes is also responsible for the disappearance of the 2 girls who disappeared from a football game in 1973. Joanne Ratcliffe, born 1962, and Kirsty Jane Gordon, born in 1968, disappeared after attending a football game at the Adelaide Oval on the 25th of August 1973. The descriptions included a man of athletic build, around 6 foot tall, high forehead and fair wavy hair. Harry Phipps was a millionaire factory owner and a father. He also lived close to the beach and the bakery where the children bought the cakes and pie. He lived less than 200 metres from Collie Reserve, in direct sight where the children were abducted from.
Yeah, so Stuart Mullins, he's an author who wrote books about the Beaumont children, their disappearance, and and he was also in the Channel 7 news investigation documentary. And he made his own documentaries, and he's hell-bent on the idea that Harry Phipps was the guy that did it. So he's done like a series of documentaries about that.
Are any of the witnesses still alive at this point?
I doubt it.
Oh, okay.
I very much doubt it. Unfortunately, Nancy and Grant Beaumont, they've since passed away as well, which is really sad because they lived the rest of their lives not knowing what happened to their children.
Oh, because they separated, didn't they? So they didn't have any...
Yeah, they didn't have any other kids.
That's so sad.
Yeah, I mean, like their youngest was 4. I don't know. It's really sad. So Harry Phipps's eldest son, Hayden Phipps, gave an interview to police detective Bill Hayes not long before Hayden Phipps passed away. At the time of the disappearance of the Beaumont children, Harry was in his 40s and Hayden was 15 years old. Angela Fife, Hayden's former wife, urged him to talk to the police because one night when they were watching TV and something came up about the Beaumont children, Hayden commented to Angela, "I've always wondered if Harry had something to do with that." In the interview with Bill Hayes, Hayden said he remembered seeing his father talking with the children. Harry Phipps was a respected businessman who was awarded the Australia Medal for Services to Industry in 1983. He was also well connected with politicians. Hayden told Bill Hayes he was terrified of his father, who was known to be extremely violent and never went anywhere without a pistol. Hayden also described how his father had a fucked up upbringing and had a fetish for women's clothing, which Hayden's mother apparently knew about. According to Hayden, Harry's mother would make him wear satin gowns, which developed into a fetish. When Hayden was a child, his father would wear satin gowns and then sexually abuse him. Hayden endured this abuse for 8 years, until he was 14 years old, until he was big enough to protect himself. Hayden recalled an occasion where Harry violently assaulted his wife with a dinner plate. Hayden intervened and beat his father up. After that, Harry never touched his wife or son ever again. On the 26th of January 1966, 15-year-old Hayden went to his part-time job at a nearby bowling alley. In the interview with Bill Hayes, Hayden said he saw his father talking with the 3 children. He saw them go into the house. He then went to his house to see what was happening. The front door was still open, so he assumed they had already left. He heard 4 gunshots, but this was nothing unusual as Harry was always letting off gunshots. He later saw Harry load his car with surfboard cupboards. Again, this didn't seem unusual to Hayden, as his father often used to carry his satin dresses in these. In 1979, Harry Phipps raped a 14-year-old girl near his factory. The victim, known as Linda, had never gone public with her story until the Channel 7 news investigation. She recalled going to her friend's house, who lived near the factory, after school. After spending 2 hours there, she left and encountered Harry. He said hello to her and mentioned that he had seen her around. They had actually seen each other before. He then started complimenting her. Linda went along with it, more concerned about being in trouble with her father for getting home late. She said there was no one around, no cars or no workers. Harry continued to talk to her inappropriately before he forced himself on her. When he was finished, he scolded her and blamed her for getting his clothes dirty, despite her having scrapes, bleeding and a dirtied school uniform, and the fact that she was crying. She ran home, still scared about being late. She was also too scared to tell her father, knowing he would have punished her. She later sought therapy for the trauma. She didn't learn of her attacker's name until many years later. The story of the Beaumont children came on the television, along with a picture of Harry Phipps. Linda recognised him straight away. Many years after the disappearance, Stuart Mullins, the author, was invited to the Phipps home by Harry's widow. He was shown around the home, including the basement where he saw a white clip purse which looked out of place. When he spoke to a colleague, he was told of the potential significance of the purse, as Jane Beaumont carried her money in a white clip purse on the day of her disappearance. When Harry's widow was asked about the purse, she insisted that she had bought the purse more recently. 15-year-old David Harkin and his 17-year-old brother, Robin, did odd jobs in their spare time to earn money. That weekend, Harry asked them to dig a hole, which had to be done during that weekend. Harry offered them a good amount of money, and as Robin was saving for their first car, they agreed to do the job despite the intense heat. They rode their bikes to the factory early Saturday morning and were shown where they needed to dig the hole and how big it needed to be: 2 metres wide, 2 metres long, and 2 metres deep. David Harkin recalled there being no pleasantries between Harry and the boys, and that Harry would just stare at them digging, instructing them to dig deeper. David was also worried about the fact that if anything went wrong, no one would know, as the factory was closed and no one could see them digging this hole. They finished digging on Sunday night, and Harry paid them with a crisp £1 note each, which was good money at the time. Harry was known to hand out crisp £1 notes. This is significant because the money that Jane had used at the bakery on the day of their disappearance was a crisp £1 note. David and his brother never thought anything of the hole they had dug after the children had gone missing. It was only until a couple of years before the Channel 7 news investigation that David connected the dots after the case was being discussed on TV, and the site where they had dug had been mentioned. David told his wife about the hole he had dug with his brother. In 2013, based on the new information, police dug at the cast alloy factory. However, they had dug the wrong location because the infrastructure of the area was different. In 2017, using rare aerial imagery of the area from the 1960s, they were able to find the correct location where the brothers had dug the hole. The soil in the area was tested for inconsistencies. Ian Moffat, archaeological scientist, found there were inconsistencies, which showed a hole, as described by David, had been dug in the area. He presented his findings to the South Australia Police, who took over the investigation. The site was declared a crime scene, and the site was dug up in 2018. The bones of various animals were found, but nothing human, which unfortunately brought the police no closer to solving the case. Harry Phipps's younger son, Wayne, has claimed that his father is innocent and that Hayden had been mentally ill. In January 1985, one theory, known as the Kalgoorlie theory, was reported in an Australian newspaper. A couple living in Perth believed 3 children, called Helen, Kathy and Mark, living next door to them when they lived in Reed, were the missing Beaumont children. They reported that the family moved to Reed not long after them in 1966, and that the parents never mixed at all with other people. They never let the kids go out and play. His name was Ian and her name was Joy. The husband was from Glenelg and went back there where he passed away. The couple were told that the 3 children were foster children, and there's not much more information I can find on that theory. I don't think it was pursued any more than that. So Nancy and Grant had separated by 1986, and Nancy unfortunately passed away in September 2019, aged 92, and Grant passed away in April 2023, aged 97.
Did the police search Harry Phipps' house, area around the house?
I'm not sure, because Bill Hayes, along with Stuart Mullins, he seems to think it was Harry Phipps, but I guess they haven't found any evidence. And, any witnesses have either passed away, or if there are any surviving witnesses, like it was 50 years ago, they're not going to have any memory of it now. And like the last significant investigation was in 2018, and that was already 7 years ago. So I don't know if they'll ever find out who did it or what happened.
Yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't pick up on the fact that his son Hayden heard gunshots.
Yeah, but Hayden didn't come forward until like recently. But I guess his dad had already passed away, and then Hayden passed away. But I wonder, what also isn't clear is if Harry's widow would have corroborated with the whole satin dress fetish and the child abuse fetish. That's not clear to me. But some of the theories, or some people believe that, what's that guy, Bevan Spencer von Einem, some people strongly believe that he was the suspect because he fit him and Harry Phipps, they both fit the description.
Yeah, I mean, there's a number there. That fit the description, so it could be.
Well, the other ones, their profiles fit, you know, they're serial killers, child whatever's, but their physical appearance didn't fit the description. Whereas the Harry Phipps and Bevan Spencer von Einem, they both fit, but it's just crazy how I know there's like you get so many like murders and disappearances that are unsolved, but like how can you not find the body of 3 children? You know, it's quite a horrible like feeling. And imagine those parents, like they've never had closure.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if they actually held on for a chance to actually find out what happened to their children.
Yeah, I imagine so. Sorry, this is really dark, but like, could you imagine being in your 90s, knowing you're going to pass away soon, not having your children by your bedside, not knowing what's happened to them?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, sorry, that's a very, very dark thought, but it's just really depressing, isn't it? And I don't know, like, it's just very sad and really messed up. Especially being, you know, they disappeared in broad daylight.
Yeah.
On Australia Day, like it's a national holiday.
Oh, so mostly everyone was off work, I'm guessing.
Yeah, or like I imagine the beach would have been busy and like it was a hot day. And the fact that no one's been able to put the pieces together to find out what's happened.
But like you said, if there was someone around that could know who did it, you know, it's too old to rely on.
Yeah. On
those memories, because, you know, memories fade and memories change with time, don't they?
Exactly. Yeah. And maybe, I mean, I'm not discrediting anything he says, but maybe Hayden, it could have been his father, Harry Phipps, or it could be that he hated his father so much it just seemed like it was convenient to pin it on him.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's interesting that his brother didn't believe him.
Yeah.
But then maybe he wasn't targeted by his father like his brother was. Well, no one knows, do they really?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that was a short but depressing one.
We're good at doing that, aren't we?
We are. It's probably our shortest episode, but a depressing one nonetheless. Does it get worse next time? What are we doing next?
Should we do Rose Dugdale?
Yeah, let's get out of Australia.
And let's go to
Ireland,
and Northern Ireland.
Get a bit political, shall we?
Yeah.
No, it should be a good one, that one.
Yeah. It's not a depressing episode.
No.
It's a very interesting one, actually.
Yeah. That'll be cool. Right, well, see you next time.
Yeah, see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed this episode. You can find more information about the show on our website at feloniouspod.com or on our Instagram at felonious.pod.
Links to our show notes can be found in the episode description, as well as through our website and social media. You can visit our Contact Us page and tell us what you think about the show and if there are any cases you would like us to cover. We hope you join us for the next episode. Goodbye.
Bye.